Welcome to Kotlin. This video is part of a series where we're building Minesweeper with Compose Multiplatform. Whilst it's designed to be useful on its own, there may be some references to earlier episodes. In a modular project like MinesweeperK, managing dependencies between modules is crucial to maintain scalability and to follow the separation of concerns principle. Koin can help with this by allowing each module to manage its own dependency graph and seamlessly integrate into the larger project. Confusingly, Koin used the term module to mean a space to gather Koin definition. This shouldn't be confused with a module of a Gradle project, which can be thought of as a sub-project of the larger project. From this point on, I'll try to refer to Koin modules as Koin modules. So here's the core idea. Each module in the project declares its own Koin module. These Koin modules define the dependencies that its module provides while still only exposing the public interfaces and classes of that module. For example, here you can see that the Koin module for the settings data module is providing an implementation of username repository, which is a public interface available from that module. Default username repository is internal to the module and cannot be accessed directly from any module depending on this one. The Koin module for the settings domain module builds on top of this by including the settings data Koin module as well as any use cases that are to be used by its dependent feature modules. Don't worry if this is all sounding a bit confusing at the moment and you're just hearing the word module a lot. It'll all become clearer as we go through the implementation of the project. Using Koin has a few advantages. So the first is encapsulation. Each module controls its own Koin module, allowing dependencies to remain internal except from the expected public API of that module, for example, like we saw earlier with username repository. It also helps with scalability. So it's easy to add new modules or features with this setup. You simply just need to define a new Koin module and link it as needed. It's helpful to have a clear modular dependency graph. By linking modules using the includes function provided by Koin, you're creating a structured and predictable dependency graph, and it's very easy to follow. You can click through and see the whole graph in the code. Now I'll show you how I implemented this for MinesweeperK following these practices. Right, so we'll start by showing the dependencies. So we can find these in the toml file and we are looking for Koin. So Koin core is going to be this is what's used throughout every single module. The Koin compose are obviously just used for modules that include UI and include anything to do with Jetpack Compose. So we'll start by adding Koin core and we've added the Koin compose libraries into this bundle down here. So we'll start by going to the build.gradle for the compose app and we'll add Koin into here. So we need libs.koin.core and we also need the bundle, so libs bundles.koin.compose. So we'll sync that, and from here we can get started creating the Koin module for the app module. So we'll just do it the same level as the app composable. So we'll create a file just named module.kt, and inside of here we'll create app module, which will just have that. One thing we'll do while we're here is just delete the greeting and platform specific functions that just come provided with the project from the Kotlin Multiplatform wizard. We don't need any of these. Just the desktop and the iOS. Okay, next we'll move into app.kt, and here we need to actually declare that it's a Koin application. So we can do that with this composable function that Koin provide. And this has a content block that we can move everything else into. So our whole composable structure is wrapped by this Koin application. So within here, we need to give a declaration. So this is where we'll include all of our modules and anything else we wish to declare. So in here, the only thing we're going to include is that app module that we've just created. So that's the setup. That's all we need for the app itself. So now we'll look how it links between one of the feature modules. So we'll just choose we'll go for the high scores. So we'll need to create the source folder. We need common main / Kotlin. Create the package. In our case, com.kotlin minesweeperk .feature.highscores. One thing we need first is to add the dependencies. It's going to be exactly the same for this feature module as it is in our app module, so we'll just take them from there, add them in. And similar to what we've done in the app module, we'll create a module.kt. Inside here, we can name it high scores module. Now, anything we want to declare and add to our Koin modules, we can just add inside of here. Anything for the high scores module. So if we go back to our app module, this can now include the high scores module, and the idea will be any new feature that we're adding, we can then include, say, the settings. We want the play module and the menu module. So this is how it can get all of its dependencies, everything it needs from inside these modules. So we can do an example of that. We'll add a view model just for our high scores screen. So in here, so this view model is not doing anything at the moment. We can just add a property in here. Let's just call it title and give it a name high scores. Doesn't really matter at the moment, but we'll add this to the high scores module. So Koin provide a specific function for view models, so we can use that, and we can reference it directly by its constructor using : and high scores module. Just something to note with auto importing with Android Studio. If this view model, I can give a quick example here. If I add something in just create a new package, just call this my view model. If I just type this out like this, Android Studio doesn't really know how to pick this up. It's just us trying to import the other function of the view model. So you need to then manually import this my view model. This is just something that might catch you out. So yeah, not really related to this tutorial, but just thought I'd mention it. But yeah, this high scores view model is now added. It's in the dependency graph, and it can be accessed within the app module. So we'll get rid of that. So the next thing we can do to improve this setup is, if we go back to our app composable, sometimes there's dependencies that only need injecting for certain platforms. So let's just say in this instance we want the application context for Android. This is obviously not going to be used, like we can't add this in common. This needs to come from Android main. So if we go to the main activity, we need a way of passing this through to the app so that it can then be used within Koin application. So to do that, we can simply say platform module. We can pass through a module here and give it a default value because not everything needs to pass through a platform module. And here, add it through there. So now if we go back to main activity where it's using this, we can create our module declaration. And so for the example we've given, we can declare a singleton here, we can give it context, and we can provide the application context. So now anything within the Android code where we need to inject the application context, it will now have because it's getting passed through here. One slight bit of housekeeping we need to do from the last episode. Our domain and data modules are mistakenly using Compose Multiplatform, the plugin, and the Compose compiler plugin. These shouldn't have anything to do with Compose, so we can get rid of that. It still needs these two plugins, but yeah, we just need to remove that from all data and domain modules. So we'll just do that now. The domain looks slightly different as we only have the Kotlin Multiplatform plugin. So we can sync that and we'll rerun the app just to show that everything's still working correctly. Yep, so as you can see, it's still running. So now what we need to do is the slightly tedious task of just adding the Koin dependencies to all of these modules. So we'll start with data. So all we need in here, because it's nothing to do with Compose, is just use libs.koin.core. So that's the same for all data modules. So we'll just copy that. And paste them in. We can do exactly the same for the domain modules. Now the feature modules, as we discussed for the high scores module, it needs both of these, so including the Compose bundle. We'll paste that into every feature module. And that should be everything. So the same way we've set up this module.kt for, say, the high scores feature module, I'm just going to run through, I'll speed this up, but I'm just going to run through and for every module create an equivalent of this minus this view model of. So just be an empty, like a skeleton module declaration. And next we need to actually include the dependencies to match our dependency graph. I'll show it on the screen here just to remind you, but I'm basically just going to work down this list from top to bottom and include everything that's needed. So we'll start by going back to the app module, and this just needs to include each of the features. So we'll import these, and now that's good to go. So next we'll go to the settings module, and this should include the settings domain module. So we can just simply type includes and domain settings. And then we'll go to the high scores module. Inside here it needs domain game. Because of how we've structured our dependencies in the first place, that it should only be able to access the domain modules that it needs. So then we need the play module, and that also uses game. And that's it for everything in the app module. So next we'll go into domain settings. Inside of here, it's just going to include the data settings module. We can go domain game. And this includes both the data settings and the data game module. And finally, we just need to go in each of the data modules and include data core module. And now this matches our dependency graph. So now we can show this in action, and we'll actually add our first screen of the app outside of the menu. So we can carry on with the high scores feature. Within here, we'll create a high scores screen. And this can take in the view model that we've just created. And for now, all this will do is just have a bit of text saying high scores that will come from the view model. So we can just add a box, and within here we'll align the content to the center. We can simply just have the text as the title property that comes from the view model. So now if we go back to the app, we'll simply just comment out this menu screen for now. We can replace it with the high scores screen. So within here we need the view model, and the modifier we'll just use fill max size, and we can get this view model through a function Koin provide. So we'll give it the type, and we can simply say Koin view model, and now this should fetch the view model even though we're within the app module, so this Compose app module, because it's going through the dependency graph here. We can essentially follow this app module all the way through to then high scores module and see it there. This is then able to be picked up here. So if we run this, we should see the high scores screen. So yeah, there we go. So this text is coming through the view model. So what we'll do now is we'll add our nav host to the app. It's not going to do anything too fancy at the moment, but for that we'll need a nav controller, which we will declare just above. And we need a start destination, which we won't worry about just yet. And within the nav host, this is where we need to declare our routes. So think of the features as having their own navigation graphs, and this is what we're going to declare in this area here. And from there it can just, each feature is then dependent on its own navigation graph. So what it's going to end up looking like is we'll have the menu routes, the high scores routes, play, and settings. We'll comment out these two for now. We'll just concentrate on menu and high scores as we have this skeleton screen set up. So we'll start by going to the menu feature module, and in here we'll just create a file named menu routes. So if we look at this nav host declaration, now I'm just going to add a blank start destination for now, but if we look in here at the very last parameter that we pass through the function, this is what this block is here. So if we, maybe it's easier just to type this, we can see that this is a nav graph builder. So quite a nice way of adding routes this way is we can just add an extension to nav graph builder. So we'll do that inside of menu routes. We can say fun nav graph builder menu routes. Now within here we can declare here composable and pass through our argument types, or if it's more of a complicated navigation stack in the menu it won't be, but for example the play screens will be, that'll have some navigation. We can use navigation here, and within this one declare each of our screens, and within these they can navigate between each other. But yeah, for menu we will just declare the menu screen. So Jetpack Compose Navigation now has type safe arguments that we can pass through. All we need for the menu, that it doesn't need any arguments, but we still need an object. So we can use data object and pass that through. This needs to be serializable. We need the dependencies. So if we go into the build.gradle, we'll need to add libs. It will be Kotlin X and serialization. So we click through. You can see here that we're using JSON, and we will also need the plugin. So just Kotlin serialization. So we add that up here with the other plugins. And sync that. Once this is done syncing, we should be able to import serializable, and that should work. So from here, just similar to what we did in the app composable before, we'll just add empty code blocks for the navigation, and the modifier we will just use modifier dot fill max size. Well, for the menu routes, we'll pass through these functions, so we can take them directly from this menu screen, and they'll be forwarded up back to the app. So from here we can forward these, go to play, go to high scores, and go to settings. And this should be everything we need for the menu routes. So we go back to our app, we can import this. As you see, we have these functions there that we can pass through. These just line up with exactly what we had before. This go to play will be empty for now, go to settings will be empty, go to high scores. We'll actually be able to navigate soon because we're going to be declaring the high score routes, so we'll do that now. Similar what we did for menu routes, we'll say high scores routes, and we need our arguments. Which again will just be a data object, and we'll include that in the build.gradle. It's the same as what we did before. We'll create an extension function on navgraph builder of high scores roots. Inside here, I'll have composable with the type of high scores. And now this is where we can declare our view model. So now back in app, I can import this. And from here, we can now say navcontroller.navigate and pass through that serializable object that we've created. Now a start destination we can set to the menu. Get rid of this old code and we'll sort the imports. Now if we run that, we can see that the start destination is the menu. And when we tap to go to the high scores, it should navigate to this high scores, which is declared here. So we'll run that and just check everything works. So here's the menu. And yeah, as you can see, it's went the high scores. We currently don't have a way of going back, but that can be added in a future episode. So the only thing left to do now, these where we're using serializable, I'm going to add this to every feature module, but I'll just speed that up. But yeah, they're exactly the same as what we've done in these, which was this serialization, dependency, and the plugin. One more thing we need to change is the visibility of these screens in the view models. So if we go into app, we shouldn't really be able to see these because all we want is this object here, and that's how we'll navigate. And you know, if this was, for example, a data class and actually had arguments that we were passing through, that's all we need to navigate. So one thing we can do is, if we go into, we'll do this for menu and high scores, menu screen should be internal so that it can only be used within the menu feature module. So just anything within here can use it. And we'll do exactly the same for the high scores screen and the high scores view model. So now if we go back to app, you can see everything is still visible that we need to. It's the public API from these. Everything is there that we need. But if I try to access high scores view model or high scores screen, it doesn't, for all intents and purposes, doesn't exist. All we can see is this high scores object. So we'll just run this to just double check it's all still working. But yeah, this is now the level of visibility that we want from the modules.